Um, any questions on this week or anything regarding the OTAs? Next week we start with minicamp Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Sean, what kind of improvement have you seen out of Ryan Ramczyk? I know last year when Ryan came, you said he was a guy who seemed to be a little bit more mature for his years and in his actions.
Look, he's a player that he's very steady, which is a good trait for what he plays. He's smart. You know, he's played over on the left side, predominantly on the right side. He's extremely smart. And so, you know, when we work a dog and blitz period or things start moving a little faster, you know, he's got a quick way about him to understand what he's doing. I think, look, he's transitioned into our league exceptionally well for a young player, and you know, a year ago we saw that. So a little bit harder to evaluate the lineman right now without pads on, but certainly he's someone we're counting on, you know, at that right tackle position.
Sean, he was part of such a great rookie class. I know you've been out here about a month with these guys, and they're entering their second year. Have you seen the intensity you want from these guys coming off all the success?
Yeah, you know, we've had some competitive drills. Not every one of them the same way, and yet there's a little bit of a cap on what you can do competitively and without being not being smart. So yeah, I would definitely say, you know, that class from a year ago is one that's going to be important. You know, we're going to count on this year's class, and I think the key thing is what are the things that they do well, trying to highlight those things, and you know, and coaching them all up the same way. Marshawn had a big play in the end of the 2-minute drill, but a few plays before that, you know, he played a technique not too well, and so you're never just turning and saying, hey, just go back to what you were doing a year ago. There's a lot of improvement for all of those guys.
Do you know anything more about your team than you did 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, look, there's not only the influx of new rookie players that you're beginning to get to know, but also the veteran players that weren't here a year ago. So to some degree, yeah. Obviously, we're not in pads yet, but I would definitely say so.
Coach, you talk about on offensive line using chemistry, and the more time they have together, they get better. But what is the challenge of getting them to match the success that group had last year?
Well, look, part of it is the health of those players. Replacing, you know, Senio, who played, you know, close to 60% of the snaps. It would be important to understand it's hard to go through a season with the same 5 guys, and yet you hope you're able to. And then any changes or things that you're adding that you think can help your team.
How much does it help having LeBron available now for the offseason?
It's been outstanding. You know, he's doing well. He's in shape, and you know, that's obviously with someone of his skill set, that's huge.
Have you noticed any improvement from Arthur Mollett?
Yeah, he's someone that can play outside, but certainly a vision for him inside as well. You know, he's one of those guys that'll compete in obviously he's further along with what we're doing defensively in some of the calls, but absolutely. And I thought towards the end of last year there were a lot of snaps. He really helped us in the kicking game. So yeah.
Cameron Moore seems to be getting a Marcus Williams treatment. He's kind of out there, back there by himself. How's he handling the install thus far?
Well, he's real smart. It was one of the things we saw from him in working him out and just on film. You know, he can do a lot of different things. He's played in a lot of different spots, and his versatility is extremely helpful. So he's one that picks things up really quickly, and that's a plus.
How valuable do you think it is that Davenport goes up against Armstead kind of on a daily basis to kind of throw him in?
Well, look, the competition, he's gotten a lot of snaps with the first group, you know, with Oak being down and Trey being down. But I think when you get into the start of training camp, you know, and if you're a younger receiver and you're going against, you know, a veteran cornerback, you quickly recognize that, you know, what you've been doing is not enough now, and and you understand that, hey, to get a pressure or sack requires, significant technique, get off, leverage, all those things. So I think it's the essence of getting better.
Being one of the most tenured coaches in the league during the off-season time like this, how do you keep your message fresh, and how do you keep reinventing yourself since you're one of the most tenured coaches in the league?
Well, I think one of the challenges sometimes is feeling like I've already given them a message, they've heard it already, when in the reality of things it might be just Breeze and Morstead that's heard it, or maybe there's 5 that's heard it. So the rosters have changed maybe differently than if the same type of group of players were returning every year. But that being said, that's part of teaching. I think there's certain ways to communicate the subject, and it's important to sometimes be creative and vary the message. But I think that's part of what we do, myself as a head coach, but also the rest of the staff. That's what we're paid to do.
Coach, entering your 13th year, has it gone by fast for you? And do you ever get a chance to reflect back, what you have accomplished so far?
No, I mean, there was one year that went by fast, so it's really 12, but they run together a little bit. I mean, some of the years, and yet, I think, you don't really have that much time to think about it. You're on to the next challenge, and the players that you have here. I think it's one of the great things about what we do is we're around young men that like to compete, and you don't ever take that for granted. It's a responsibility, and again, back to the last question, you're looking for ways to really maximize what they do, how they perform, just like a teacher would.
Sustainability is such a hard thing to sustain in this league. Based on the success you had last year, do you think you have to coach this team harder this year to keep them on point as to what they need to do?
I don't necessarily think, I'd like to think that we coached hard last year. I think that you've got to pay attention to the details, and there's certain things that you approach differently with the team coming off of some success, and yet I think I know that there's a hunger in everyone's mouths just from, the way the season ended a year ago for all of us. So, but you got to prepare right now to improve. We're competing against each other. We've got several more months before we play our first preseason game, and then you begin that climb, and each week is a different challenge. So hopefully, and I do think we've got outstanding leadership in the locker room, and that's necessary. At some point, any good team kind of begins to lead themselves.
Sean, year 2 for Trayvon Durrell. What's the biggest challenge this time of the year for a guy like that?
Well, look, he's in better shape. He's stronger in the lower body. That was an area that we felt he could improve a lot on. I thought he's, I would say just during these OTAs, he's done a lot of good things. So he can run. I expect to see a big step or a big jump from a player like him, and so far he's done a number of good things. So I'm encouraged.
Sean, you mentioned Latimer. When you talk to him, he comes across very easygoing, mild manner, but then he talks about wanting to get back at teams that didn't draft him a couple of years ago. His competitive nature, how is that going to serve him well? How impressed are you by that?
Look, I think the personalities can vary. In other words, you can be quiet and still very competitive. You can be extremely outspoken and boisterous, but ultimately, you hope you're working with guys that don't want to let their teammates down. They don't want to let themselves down. That they want to succeed, and I think that certainly in his case, and look, that group from Ohio State, all kind of, they come in, they've been coached well in college, and but I think that's a good trait of his. I would definitely say so.
You mentioned leadership, Coach. Are there any new or young leaders that have emerged thus far?
Hard to tell right now because of just the installation, and that'll begin to take place with a little bit more time. Certainly there's some veterans that are back that we've had before: Ben Watson, Jermon Bushrod, Demario Davis is a guy who's certainly, as you watch him interact, is strong in that area. And it's not scripted or rehearsed or planned. That'll begin to take care of itself.
What do you guys need to do to run the ball as effectively as you did last season, given teams know that you were so good at it this year?
Well, you're wanting to be efficient. It's if you're on schedule or ahead of the chains a little bit, it's a little bit more easy to do. I think in both cases, offensively and defensively, we got to be better on third down. But I think that finding the replacement for Mark's role that early part of the season will be important to handle that challenge.
Talking about that, Trey Edmonds is a guy that's been with the system for a year now. Just what have you seen from him?
Well, he's a smart player. He's played limited snaps on offense, but a number of snaps in special teams. He's competing, and he'll be one of those guys that we take a look at, and he'll have a chance to prove himself.
You're mentioning veterans in the locker room, and a new veteran that you have in there, Kurt Coleman. Do you expect him probably, as the season progresses, to him being that leader, kind of mentoring?
He's another one.
Guys?
You feel his presence. It had a lot to do with. I don't know that anyone could have watched more film on Kurt Coleman than I had a chance to see, because we played him 3 times last year. We've seen him however many times, and we've always had a ton of respect for how he plays. So his presence you feel out here, and he would definitely be one that you knew from afar, but then when he's in the building now, you get a chance to meet him and be around him, and he's a great addition for us. All right, thank you.